Take number three. I really hope this is working. My camera ran out of storage. There we go. Okay, hopefully it doesn't do that to me again. Welcome. How are we doing, y'all? Hope y'all are doing well. I know I've been out for a while and I want to talk about that in a different video. But for now, I want to address something else. First of all, I want to talk about my one-on-one coaching. Okay, so if you want to be able to get an aesthetic body and be able to learn how to maintain that body, you can click down in the description. I do it specifically for like Muslims, but if you're not, that's fine. You know, um, and yeah, I teach you different workout programs along with custom meal guides. So like even after you're out of my program, you'll be able to know what to do to maintain your physique and strive toward a different goal if you'd like to. So check that out if you're interested. If not, that's what my videos are for. But yeah, let's get into the video topic, right? So music. I'm gonna have to go over this entire thing again because it didn't record. But oh well. All right. So let's get into it, right? So I want to preface this video by first saying I watched one of Hamza's videos and I had some takes about music. His was, I think, roughly like maybe 4 months ago. I could be completely wrong, but mine was like 8 months back when I was in Pakistan and I lost my phone at Mecca. And so I made a video on music because I tend to listen to a lot of music, right? And so uh, I'll share my thoughts with you on what like my thoughts used to be on music. But let's get started, right? So let's understand why we first listen to music. Um, because I feel like a lot of these self-improvement YouTube channels sometimes start out like, "Oh, you're a degenerate if you do this. You're Jeffrey if you do this. Stop doing it." Boom, boom, boom. But it's important to understand why we do it to begin with, because none of us are saints, right? So the thing about music, right, is a lot of us just like it. We like vibing to it. Sometimes it's really just as simple as that. But for a lot of people, it's also where, whether we like to admit it or not, where a lot of our beliefs can be shaped, our thoughts, our emotions, how often we have those thoughts or emotions, right? I think a lot of that can actually be shaped by music, and I don't think it's talked about enough, unfortunately. And so I think a lot of us listen to it because we kind of take refuge sometimes, I guess you could say, in music. Because in the modern world, it seems like no one really gets us sometimes, or like we can't really connect to anybody. Um, like we try to be social, but then our expectations can be let down. Maybe that's just me. Um, or sometimes even if we are social, there's like a lack of understanding, there's like a lack of depth, and because of that it's hard to kind of understand other people. And when other people lack understanding of who you are, um, and sort of kind of get to help you like validate yourself in some way. um, Maybe I guess a lot of people can say seeking validation from others is really really bad, but I don't know, I don't think the validation is the right word. It's more so like, again, it's more so like understanding, right, of what one goes through. And I think in the modern day the biggest problem is like a lot of, for example, men and women have problems, and we see that, but we like to kind of disenfranchise certain people and be like, yo, like you don't have it that bad, instead of creating some understanding. So I think when that happens, um, when that lack of understanding takes place, we go to things like drugs, alcohol, or like substance abuse, right? Or addictions for that matter. And I think one of them that isn't talked about enough is music. And I think music has its goods and bads. Now, what are those goods and bads? Let's start with the bad, right? So in one of my videos, I previously mentioned that I think music can kind of bring out some sort of emotions and thoughts in you. And that can be a good and a bad thing. And you might be able to see where I'm going with this. But sometimes what happens is certain music is associated with certain points within our past, right? And when that song gets played, like I've had this happen plenty of times. A lot of you are gonna say cringe, but you know you've done this, you know this happened to you. There's some songs that you do not touch because they're associated with a certain person, perhaps, or a certain time in your life that you did not like, and you do not want to go back, whatever, right? Because you use those songs in that moment to comfort yourself. But now in the future, looking back on it, you're like, I don't want to hear that again because I don't want to be anywhere near that era again, or something along those lines, right? So I think in that way, it can be harmful sometimes if we kind of start listening to that again. It also depends heavily upon genre and what we're listening to the music for. For example, there's gym, right? What are you listening in the gym? um, what are you listening when you're behind closed doors at night and you feel like no one understands you and you're alone? Like a lot of sad music, you'll play it on repeat because artists can articulate what it is you're feeling. You feel validated, where other people, like, you feel validated, right? And y- it's nice because you kind of get to almost in some sense feel sorry for yourself, right? And self pity can kind of be like a friend of yours for a while and then help you understand, like, hey, like this tough, like this sucks, you know? And where where these musicians have that understanding, the modern day lacks. And it's unfortunate because that's where like the connection happens. That's where you talk to people. That's where you get to know people, and that's where like you create that bond. And thankfully, I have some brothers in real life right now that I have that bond with. And I remember back in high school, like I really didn't, um, or I felt as though I didn't sometimes. And both of those things can be true at the same time because sometimes you feel like you're so alone and isolated, not because you're necessarily alone and isolated, but you also isolate yourself in that you think that other people don't go through the same thing you do. So you kind of alienate yourself from potentially believing that you're a lot like these other people. And that sucks because you think that all you see is like pretty faces and smiles when behind closed doors it's a completely different case that you don't even know about, right? um and so you think you're in the boat alone by feeling like lonely and all that. I remember that was me. I've talked about this before. I would be in showers. I would be in the shower, close the lights, turn the lights off, just listen to music, warm water, or really really hot showers, because like it helped me feel something. It helped me feel warm when like nothing else did. And so again, music was a big part of that, and I didn't want to let go of it. And I still don't want to let go of it. Don't even like I can't even begin to tell you that I'm not some sort of saint, right? Again, like I I listen to a lot of music. And I recently have been trying to be more religious because of Ramadan, right? And it's been very difficult, and I've gotten really better about it, but it's still been difficult. And so I'm going to talk about that experience. Um, in Islam, I tried to look it up, and maybe I haven't done enough research on this, perhaps, so someone can kind of like help me understand this. But I'm from the school of thought, like Hanfi school of thought, right? And so um, I haven't particularly seen anybody talk about how like a solid haram or halal. There's like debates on whether music is that, you know. But if there's one thing I can say for certain, it's that I think stop listening to degenerate music will definitely improve your mental health, okay? And along with listening to music with a lot of cursing. Now, what's my reasoning for that, right? You might say, well, I just listen to it for the vibes. I don't even know what they're saying. They're mumbling, bro. Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even listen to female rappers anyway. Like, you probably have all these things that you talk about, that you say, all this. But there's a few points, again, that I want to make, which is one, um, the lyrics, what it kind of promotes, and the like, eh, basically the influence it has, which is kind of the same thing. Now, I'm not saying like you'll become like if you listen to drill, you're just gonna thug out and just start going around stabbing people. That's not it. But I think it genuinely does to some degree steer you in certain directions. Um, because I like thinking about it like this, right? Think about a person who listens to that kind of music, and I'm not talking about drill specifically, right? Because there's probably drill out there that I don't know about that actually sounds good. That's actually really nice to listen to in the gym, right? That's why I'm kind of conflicted on this myself. Um, but uh, think about it like this, right? Anything that you wouldn't want your children to listen to, you probably shouldn't listen to, because then you're going to have this shame that, like, hey, I'm listening to this and this is the kind of influence I'm having. Like, and I want you to imagine that for your partner too. Like, imagine the standards you set for them so that how those standards that they set for themselves will impact your children as well. So think about that as well, right? So would you want your partner, your wife or your husband to be listening to stuff like that, especially like around your children? I didn't think it was a big deal. Sometimes I'd have it around and my dad, he'd be like, yo, they're cussing too much. And I'd be like, yo, it's not that big a deal, but I kind of understand now. Um, I get it. Uh, and one thing in terms of cussing, it's made it so cussing's a lot more okay because it's exposed me to it a lot more. So I do it a lot more, right? And that's not something I'm necessarily proud of. So I'm trying to reduce that as well, especially during Ramadan. And I'm not just trying to do it during Ramadan. I'm trying to make that like a permanent thing because like there's no reason for me to do it. And I think sometimes Ramadan like reminds you that some of the things that you're like doing, um, like it makes you question them because it feels weird to not do them during Ramadan, but then start doing them again after Ramadan. It's like, wait, like what? It feels kind of almost to some sense hypocritical, right? Now, I'm not saying we're all going to be perfect when we're like during Ramadan, we're all just going to start fasting like 365 years of the day, not listening to music. We're going to be monks. Like, that's just not like it'd be great, but I don't think that's how it's going to go. But like if we were to start somewhere, I think listening to music that is a lot healthier, which in my opinion looks something like mm, let me start like this first. What are the few solutions that I think are to this problem? One is deloading, which is deloading is basically reducing the amount of times or the number of songs that you listen to that are degenerate in nature or that I classified as degenerate in nature if that fits the profile for you, right? And again, I'm not no morality police. I'm just telling you to simply try this out, critically think like is this for you? Like could you try this out, see if it helps you? Um and another thing you could do is switch like replacement, which is basically just switching that music for another kind of music, which is more of like, I don't know, maybe instrumental music comes as talked about. I like listening to a lot of lo-fi. I've always been into lo-fi, so I listen to that. I listen to a lot more, maybe perhaps jazz now. And I think that's definitely made an impact for me. I'm not gonna say like I grew wins like some semen retention BS, like where they talk about how, you can do this, you can levitate, you can fly, but it's definitely like listening to that kind of music's definitely helped my mental health because you think about it, right? Think about it. Um, think about in the future if your kids were to listen to that, think about whether or not if you're more religious on the religious side, if the prophet would listen to stuff like that. And the answer in your head is probably an astounding no. It should be like pretty obvious, right? Now, a lot of you can argue, well, he wouldn't listen to anything at all, probably, and music didn't exist back in the time either. Fair enough, fair arguments. But here I'm asking you to kind of look out for yourself and ask yourself, is believing in that going to help you? Right? Because I'm trying to help you understand that this is also really helped me with my mental health and being at peace and almost to some degree my productivity, even, which I can get into. But think about it, right? Like, I think about this all the time. Like, I probably wouldn't want my wife to be listening to hella degenerate music because that's something that you kind of like. I know it sounds really ridiculous, but just think about it, right? Think about the people that are a lot more religious or in a better mental state. What do you think they're doing compared to the people that are going to a lot of parties and clubs that you probably don't want to be around, that are listening to all kinds of this kinds of music, and you probably don't want your being your wife or your husband? Think about it, right? They're probably not listening to this. I'm going to keep it a buck. But let's continue, right? How do I think this helps with productivity? Again, I mentioned that I think music exaggerates like your emotional state, which to some degree for a lot of us felt like it helped. But I think it's better now if you start reducing that because you feel more at peace. Like the music almost gives you more of a reason to feel what you're feeling almost, and to some degree enact on it, and to some degree believe that you deserve to kind of enact on it. So um let me actually give you an example of what I mean, right? A lot of music out there, for example, um you could argue maybe even objectivize women to some degree. I know some people that will listen to that kind of music and think in that exact same manner as well, with no intentions of having any sort of like wife or anything like that, which in my opinion is just kind of trash. Um, what about sad music as well? Sad music will have you believing things about yourself, like that you're always depressed all the time, or you're always a certain state all the time, and it's just not great. It's just not a great way to live. Um, so again, constantly listening to this kind of music not only amplifies it, but what it will do is if you play it, it kind of also puts you into that mood. So it's like emotionally manipulating you essentially at every turn. Same thing with when you go on to TikTok and Instagram and these apps, right? Look what happens. What happens? They have music on there. Half of these TikToks and Instagram reels, all these things would not be as appealing if they did not have music on there. It's just that simple. So half of them wouldn't even work because the beat drops, because the transitions, they wouldn't exist. They wouldn't be there. So the catchy music also adds on to it. It adds the emotional flair, and it adds life to it. But at the same time, there's like destruction if you listen to certain kind of music. So there's no like there's a massive gray area in this because it's like an art, right? And it depends on how it makes you kind of feel. But I wanted to put my thoughts out there just to make you aware that this is what the music does to me, and it perhaps might be doing that to you as well, right? Now I mentioned the productivity aspect of it. Why is that? Again, uh, I think it kind of takes you out of this peaceful state. And what do I define as peace? I got this from Dr. K from Healthy Gamer, and I think it was really, really powerful. He says, peace is the cessation of fluctuations of the mind. And to some degree, when I heard that definition, it almost feels as if peace can be like trackable to a degree. Um, because your fluctuations of the minds are like the emotional the emotional things you go through throughout the day and the thoughts you have throughout the day, right? So as the day progresses, more of that stuff can build up. Like you get this call from here, you get stressed from here, you're tired there, like all these things build up. That's why people talk about all these entrepreneurs, all these people they talk about, they get up early in the morning, even in the hustle culture, like centrally a lot of them agree that getting up early in the morning, even in Islam, like getting your work done in that portion of time early on in the day is like the best thing after you wake up, because your mind is at a state of peace, no fluctuations, no nothing. You haven't gone through the entire day to be like tired yet, to feel a certain sort of sadness or tiredness. I would argue to less of a degree, even if you are feeling those things, to less of a degree in the morning, assuming you're like taking care of your health, of course. um like your sleep, like sleep's a big one. But yeah, like you have to think about that. Something and that's something that's helped me honestly be a lot more productive. I thought music used to help me be a lot more productive, and to some degree it did, because I was listening to lo-fi things that didn't have words. But when they have words, you're kind of processing the words in the music and the words that or the assignment that you might be doing as well. So you have to be very careful of that. Like there'll be times where I've done something as stupid as listen to the lyrics and I'm writing an essay and I accidentally write the lyrics down. Like stuff like that. Or someone's talking to me and I accidentally like put the lyrics down or like put what they're saying down instead of what I'm supposed to be writing. Like it's the same thing as when you're pulling up to a house and trying to look at the address, you turn down the sound because there's so much processing happening that you reduce, like you turn down the volume just so you can like feel like you can see better. That's why we're like, oh, turn down the volume so you can see better because you're like processing too much. So that's something to keep in mind as well. What else? I have some notes written down here as well. Uh, Again, like music validates us heavily, and I understand that. Like it's been my friend for like the longest time as well. But you have to understand that I think some of us know deep down that music can have these effects, but like a lot of us kind of don't want to give it up. Um, there's also that social aspect of it. I don't know if I mentioned it in this one or the last one because I've already done like two takes of this, so I can't remember. But yeah, there's a social aspect of music too. That if like, same thing goes with the way you dress, things like that. Like if you're listening to the song, like, hey, have you listened to the new Kanye album that dropped? Like, you got to be serious, bro. You cannot be serious. Ride the dick like Carnival. Like we like there's no way we find music like that. Maybe okay, this is probably just me ranting about this, but like that is not appealing whatsoever. That specific like the songs like that just aren't appealing. Like I don't understand the appeal behind them, right? And that's just a me thing. So like just mind that. That was like a little tiny side rant, but like it's a big social thing. Like people are like, "Have you listened to the new album?" Like, and you vibe with it in the car when you're moving along, stuff like that. So like people don't want to miss out. So people also listen to that kind of music even if they don't like it. Like that's just how it is. So again, there's a social aspect. There's the aspect that it makes us feel validated, even sometimes when people don't understand us, or like especially in an era where loneliness is like at its peak. What else? It does all these things that we think are kind of good, but I don't think that they're that great, and they kind of stop you from leaning into first of all the kind of music that you might want to listen to, because again, there's that social aspect of it. Um, and again, no one's forcing you to listen to that. It's just more like, oh, everybody else listening to it. Like that's why we play the popular music when, like, something we know everybody's gonna vibe to when we get into the song, get into the car. We're not gonna play what we actually want to because we're like, oh, like someone might not vibe with it. So, um, I think that makes it to where we lean into ourselves less, right? And it can also kind of affect our mental health. Like I said, like you're listening to this music degenerate as hell where they're cussing all the time, so that's affecting your behavior. You're probably going to be more likely to just want to cuss. Again, I don't have science on this, but like this is my personal anecdote. Like this is exactly what happened to me. um you might gain particular beliefs about like a certain group or something like that, um which aren't true like at all. You might see or literally view things perceptually through a negative lens because you're constantly exposing yourself to this kind of music where you literally almost affirm that you're always sad or always lonely. That happened to me as well. Like I affirmed it with these songs. I don't completely believe in affirmations to a degree, but like it makes sense now. Like if you keep telling yourself one thing, and I think Hamza addressed this in his video too, like if you keep telling yourself one thing over and over again, you might just end up believing it, right? And so we talk about this idea of some of the most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself, right? And or some of like your beliefs are the things, I don't know if that exactly fit in there, but like what I'm trying to say is like, oh, it's that one. Yeah, it's the beliefs about yourself are the one that you need to like, kind of contemplate and kind of think about. because they're very, very important, and they definitely shape the way that you behave, the way you conduct yourself. And I think music's a big part of that. It's like a big affirmation. It's like a huge affirmation. And it kind of tells you like where you fit in. Like literally, I'm not even kidding. I listen to specifically, especially during Ramadan, when I listen to nasheeds, I feel very holy and pure. When I listen to, for example, lo-fi, like jazz music or like bossa nova, I feel like I feel very sophisticated, like very, very elegant. Like I just want to sit down with my tea and candle, and that's kind of what this aesthetic for me was inspired by. What else? When I listen to rap, uh, I I genuinely have more of the proclivity to cuss. I'm not even gonna lie to you. So a lot of it is hype too. I'm not saying that rap isn't my kind of music, so I'm just dissing it and sitting down and being like, "Oh yeah, rap's all this." Bro, I have a rap playlist that is 24 hours long. It's a whole day. It's a whole day. Don't tell me I don't listen to that because I do, and I'm not exactly proud of it. Some of it is actually really good though. Some of it is good. Like some of the ones I like, but I know I shouldn't be listening to. They're really, really good. Some of them I can still listen to, and I allow myself to, because they kind of meet that criteria, and it's like just hype. It's just hype, right? It's just nice to listen to. It like kind of hypes you up for the gym, stuff like that. Um, but I'll say I mostly listen to hardstyle remixes. They're mostly sound, uh, and some anime slash hardstyle remixes as well. What else? Even music from different language, right? You might say, well, I can't understand a word that they're saying. That's perfectly fine. You might just vibe with it. Like, those memes on TikTok and Instagram where they're like, oh yeah, like everybody's vibing to this song, but they don't realize that it's some Japanese girl talking about how she wants to kill herself. Like it's really, really dark, you know what I mean? But like even when you don't understand that, like even the melody is like really, really powerful and things of that nature. So like just stay cognizant of that. It can put you in a certain mood as well. Like even certain instrumentals you could argue would put you in a very, very sad mood because they don't need lyrics to have that powerful influence on you. So again, this is more of a video, like this is a video of me kind of talking about somewhat, I'm not gonna lie, there's gonna be some bias and like mute like taste in music, stuff like that. So, you know, uh, called Kanye out or whatever. Uh, Even though I do have listened to some of his stuff and I actually like some of his stuff as well. It's not about music taste. It's more about like how music affects you, right? And possible effects it can have on your productivity. Um, why it's good, why it's bad. Like now, I want you to kind of critically think on whether or not that's an option for you, like what you should do and what you shouldn't. Some people say, "Oh my God, this is complete BS," but it's also because they haven't tried it. Most of those people they comment that I guarantee you they will not try it. Okay. A lot of those videos or a lot of those people probably left within the first 5 minutes of this video because they heard music bad. Therefore, I'm not going to listen to this guy. That's perfectly fine. But just try it out. See what works for you. Limit it. And I'm telling you, like, it will it will reduce the amount of like emotional fluctuations that you have or thought patterns that you have that you'll lean into because again a lot of that music is associated with things in the past, so you have to take that into account, and so it'll bring back bad memories, so you're literally not living in the past. You'll visualize stuff, but there could be good visualizations as well. So I remember I listened to Viva La Vida, right? I listened to that and it gave me visualizations of the kind of things I could do with my content or like the animation I would make sometimes or stuff like that. But sometimes I've listened to some really, really like almost dark funk that reminds me of like my alter ego, you know, not the Drake one, not the Anita Max Swain, not that one. Like a more dark kind of, and that's actually something I also wanted to address that I didn't like. Sometimes I feel like music calls onto a part of ourselves, and Jung calls this the shadow. It's essentially, I know this might be a lot for one video, but um, the shadow is essentially this concept where there's some traits that we have that are kind of suppressed, by society because society deemed them unworthy, or the people around you deemed them unworthy. Therefore, you kind of discarded them, right? And as you grow up, you kind of try to learn to integrate some of those traits back into yourself to help yourself. So creativity is one of them, aggression. And I use aggression more in the form of like the masculine drive rather than like lashing out on someone kind of aggression. Um, so yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about. Like some of that music, some of that deep, dark, like funk, or maybe even like metal, or what else? Some of that music, like a lot of us listen to it because it kind of taps into that version of us that we like, that is like screaming to get out. I think I talked about that on one of my previous videos as well. Like that shadow side is wanting to get integrated within your personality, or like that creative aspect, or things of that nature. Like for example, I'll listen to a lot of uh, what kind of music? It's either sometimes I'd listen to drill, which is why it's so hard to give up. Like I'd listen to sometimes some of the drill, sometimes I'd listen to funk, uh, or anime mixed with funk, or sometimes like Joker laughing, or sometimes stuff like that, like really, really weird stuff, like what other people would consider really, really weird, right? But like, if you understand me, like you understand what I'm talking about. Like it goes into that kind of realm of like especially in the gym or when you're doing Muay Thai, like it goes into that realm of just like savagery almost, and there's something about it that you just love, and it feels so right, and it feels like you're finally like out of these like weird moral constraints for a little while or something like that. It's really hard to explain. I'm doing probably a really bad job of it right now, but again, it's a more specific way of saying that music kind of validates you, right? So uh, that's what I wanted to get to. Now it's for you to decide like how that affects you, because music again is an art, and we all perceive it in different ways. So I want you to still like try kind of abstaining from certain music that you know is bad for you. This requires you to be as honest with yourself as possible, right? Um, and in doing that, I think you'll be able to better your mental state, be at peace with the silence, and you'll enjoy it. You might think that you're afraid to, have everything be so silent, right? That you need something always happening, like a TV show playing in the background while you study, or like your phone, or like someone talking to you, or always being in company, or being on a video game, or something like you always, or music. Like you think you need something, but like just shut it off for a little while. Just like sit down, just like go take a walk, do something without the music. Okay, just do it. And or maybe even if you're walking to class, try that. Just try it in little sections of your life, little portions. I'm not asking you to quit it completely. I gave you a few ways you could either go cold turkey if you feel like that this message is hitting really, really hard for you and you think you can. Go ahead. Me personally, I don't think I could do that immediately. Like I can't go cold turkey on this, because again, it's a big part of my life. Like that's just how it is. So for me, I've been doing both, which is replacing that music with something else, and alongside that, like gradually slowing down the different timings that I listen to music, right? Now, gym is a really, really hard one. Uh, Listening to certain kind of music in the gym, because like you're trying to get yourself hyped up, you're trying to get yourself fueled. So sometimes listening to some of that aggressive music can feel nice, but still avoiding some of that rap would be nice. And I know like a lot of you are gonna have some pushback on this, because it's like, well, that's my preference, just like hardstyle is your preference. And I mean, fair enough. But again, I want to kind of help you out potentially when it comes to like any sort of uh, influence that music might have on your actions or your mental health or your behavior or the way you think and see. Like, I want to kind of change that lens in which you see reality for the better. So if you want to try this out, try it out. I think it would really help. Um, just try it out. Just try it out. Uh, and then if it doesn't, okay, sick. At least you gave it a shot. But I want you to try it out for at least like maybe for a month. But again, start gradual. Maybe some of you could quit immediately. If you can't, progressively deload, which means listen to it less, or listen to either less songs or less time wise for that kind of music, and um, just be silent with everything around you. Or if you can't do that option, again, replace it with other kinds of music that is more healthy. So for example, like what kind of things can you replace it with? Maybe lo-fi. Maybe you can listen to some instrumentals of something instead of the actual like lyrical version. Maybe you can listen to some reggae. I think reggae is pretty nice. Maybe some jazz, things of that nature. Of course, you probably want to abstain from it during Ramadan, but yeah, I know this video was a mouthful. I haven't recorded in a while, so uh, be mindful of that. But again, I just wanted to make you aware of uh, music. I just want to see if I covered everything. Let's see. Mm, yeah, I did. I'm pretty sure I covered that as well. Okay, sick. All right, yeah. So, um, the video is pretty much done now. I'll just give you a few updates on what I plan on doing later. So, I plan on probably making a diet video about Ramadan and just a diet video in general because I've had a lot of questions asked about that, and it's honestly unfortunate. I think diet's really, really simple. So, I'll probably look to be making something like that. I just want to test out the Ramadan diet first before I like prescribe it in some sense because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to not try it and then tell you something that doesn't work, right? So if it works for me, I'll tell you about it. Um, but yeah, specifically bulking during Ramadan. So I think that's going to be an interesting one, and uh, and yeah, I'll probably make a video about why I took my hiatus for as long as I did as well. So I think that's important to address. But besides that, peace out, take it easy, and